Hello, I'm Mars Contreras-Brown, founder at Prelude Education, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Ionascu, a conductor, music educator, and former director of the junior department at the Royal Academy of Music. We're here to talk about junior departments, about what they are, who they're for, and how you as a parent can help that process of your child gaining a place. So if you're thinking about putting your child on the path towards junior departments, junior conservatoires, then you don't want to miss this. And I suppose a logical place to start with this whole process, Howard, is thinking, what is a junior department? And how do they perhaps differ from just private music lessons that people have?
Yeah, so all the music colleges have junior departments, and essentially it's a Saturday takeover of these amazing institutions designed specifically for young musicians. They all differ in terms of ages, but essentially they go up to the end of sixth form age to 18, and they start as young as 5 and 6.
Oh, wow.
And these are specialist music academies, and they are designed for young musicians who want to take their music a great deal further than Monday to Friday. In essence. That is not to say that Monday to Friday is not very important, as are all the other things that they might be doing. They might be doing county music orchestras, and they might be doing National Youth Orchestra, they might be doing all sorts of things. But this is a very, very focused day in the week where they can solely work on their music, and they have a whole structure to the day that centres around their individual music lesson.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like it'll be a comprehensive day doing those Saturdays. And what sort of student do you think then would thrive in that type of environment?
It sounds silly, but seriously into their music. But where increasingly music is having a bigger and bigger part in of their life, and their thinking time and their ambitions maybe for post-school. And so you're talking about a young musician who is showing all that thirst for becoming the better player, the better performer. And this is just a golden opportunity to do that.
Brilliant. And I suppose one of the things that's interesting to think about is, so some of those students who end up doing these Saturday schools go on to go to a conservatoire level, some don't. But what do you say is the impact of going to a junior department for a child?
Well, I think it's very interesting. I think there's lots of answers to that. Firstly, often former junior students say to me, it was being with like-minded people of my own age. And this was actually probably as important. That idea that you walk through the door of a junior department and everyone else is there having the same feelings about music and the same aspiration, the same striving for excellence. Again, that's not to say that doesn't happen when you're at school, but at school, inevitably, you have people who are interested in their music, those who want to specialise in sport, in drama. At a junior department, everyone is focused on music.
Yeah.
Even at lunchtime in the canteen, it's music, music, music.
So it's about finding your tribe then?
Finding your tribe, absolutely. Out of context, that can sound elitist. I can assure you, anyone who walks through the door of a junior department, it does not feel at all elitist. It feels very real, very authentic, that these are young people, dare I say the classical equivalent of the Fame Academy, that sort of style of focus. What they are doing, and they unashamedly doing, is working for excellence in one particular field. And so therefore, they are open to all who want to strive. If that's your thing, then the junior departments for you, they are absolutely open to all. But actually, although it might sound flippant, the first and most important thing is this the right place for your child? And if your child is really showing a specialist interest in music, then it may well be. All of the junior departments have open mornings where they very much open the doors and show you around, have parents, have students, and that is the place to go. Go and have a look. Go and immerse yourself. Go to one of their concerts. They've always got concerts on Saturday afternoons. Just go through the door and just unannounced, and just go and have a look and see what happens. I think you'll soon know whether it's the right place for you or not.
Amazing. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, actually. And when it comes to the actual application itself, then broadly, what is sort of the main stages?
Yeah, so the main stages are the open mornings, open days are always strategically placed X number of months before deadline for applications, so that gives people a chance to have a think about it and put an application together. Then you apply on an online application through the college, and then you are given an audition date. Generally, they're around Easter time. Not all the colleges do the same thing, but most do that around the Easter time. And you'll go and audition in front of, well, formerly people like me.
Yeah.
And you prepare for that, and then you are either offered or perhaps not offered a place.
Fantastic. What's always interesting, and what lots of parents ask me, what is it that a junior department really looks for in an applicant?
Well, I think to start to answer that question, the most important person is their current instrumental teacher, because they will have a good understanding of what junior departments are looking for and the level. So, use them as a sounding board. And in fact, if they initiate the conversation, then, take it very seriously. In terms of the standard, it's so hard to say what is the standard. Some liken it to grade 8 level, grades standards, but that's all relative. And certainly when I was at the academy, that was not. It wasn't a prerequisite to have a certain grade. What you were looking for was the potential in a young musician, and to spot the potential and think, right, we can do something with this.
And what does that potential look like? Is it that their enthusiasm, that kind of spark in their eye, or what?
It's a very hard one to quantify. But, that's not to say that there shouldn't be at that stage technical prowess. There has to be the foundation. The foundations have to be there. But it's looking for that keenness, that eagerness, that hunger, that thirst. And to really get a sense that the child is speaking their own voice, if that makes sense.
Because in that audition, they play their principal instrument, and then there's sort of an interview section afterwards when you're asking these types of questions.
Everyone does them slightly differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes they deliberately do them a little bit differently every time, just to keep,
keep
that
fresh.
sort of thing of people saying, "Oh, what happened?" Is to keep it fresh and keep it alive. But a typical audition would be that they would play on their first instrument, their principal instrument. Then they could play on their second instrument. Some even sang and played a third instrument. Then there would be things like either sight reading or a quick study or a prepared piece, something like that, and then some oral tests, and I would finish it off with a chat at the end. And I never called it an interview; it was always an informal chat, and that was the time really to get a sense of how thirsty are they for a place at a junior department? How organised are they? Where's this going to fit with looming GCSEs or A-levels? Have you really got time to do this? All those important questions, because, you could have a very, very talented, seriously talented musician, but if they haven't got the time to fully commit to it, then it's not going to be the right place.
I love that idea of their thirst for it and wanting to do it. And I remember we spoke about this a couple of months ago too. You can really tell when someone's enjoying what they're doing, they're enjoying their performance too. Obviously, it's a lot about the sound, but I suppose, is stage presence something which is important to think about?
Yes. Stage presence without affectation. I can think of certain juniors during my time that it was just such a joy to watch them perform. There was something so unbelievably natural about their musicianship, and they've not surprisingly gone on to great things. So it's very hard, again, to quantify this. It doesn't mean you have to be the most extrovert of performers. That's not what I'm saying. I can think of some brilliant performers who are very, very, very still, very quiet, but totally brilliant. So, we're not saying everything has to be loud and brash.
Yeah.
And actually, likewise, in terms of the choice of pieces, I can think of some of the most extraordinary moments in auditions where it has been quite a simple piece, quite quiet, quite still, totally mesmerising. And, you know, it's about sincerity of performance as opposed to overall technical prowess at that stage.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, and that kind of making me think of other things you said in the past around, you know, that's around that idea of that student being very thirsty for it. Does this ideal candidate have to be going to conservatoire?
No. So it's. I mean, every college will have their own stats, but very often the stats would look like 50% do, 50% don't. In terms of conservatoire, music at university was always very popular. English, history, but for some, it just becomes a major amateur passion in their adult life. But they always look back at their time at junior department as this moment where they did something to such a high level at such a young age, and that really framed a lot of their adult thinking.
Well, I think it's really refreshing and nice and reassuring thing for lots of parents to hear as well, because, again, there is that perception, I suppose, sometimes that if you're going through this process at a junior department, then the next step is a conservatoire and you're studying music at university, but it really isn't the case.
It really isn't. It totally, very much. It's not a hothouse in that sense. It really isn't. It's much more about the there and the here and now of what's happening, and in some way, in some senses, it will be a sort of a path to the next stage. But for others, it's just, and of course, you know, it's not going to look bad on your university application.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge amount of discipline and commitment that's needed as well as to be part of a junior department. And one of the things that I feel a question that I get a lot from parents is thinking about how important is sight reading and oral skills as part of that application, as part of the admissions process to these junior departments.
A lot of people think it's going to be a defining pass or fail for sight, and that could be the death knell for your place at a junior department. That I don't think is the case. What sight reading and oral show an audition panel is another dimension to their musicianship, and there are definitely ways you can prepare. Absolutely ways you can prepare in a very general way, not the specific questions that the panel are going to ask you, but developing your oral awareness. That's a very different, general skill of being able to effortlessly hear and sing back three notes in a chord cluster. If that doesn't happen to you, if you can't do that naturally, and that's not the most natural thing to be able to do, there are definitely ways to get better at that, and that's what a panel will be testing. How's the ear working?
And for parents then who are thinking about applying, is there any sort of common misconceptions that they might have about junior departments?
Well, I'm just going to say it. I think the common misconception is that they're posh, and they often are in quite incredible environments. The buildings are amazing, but again, if you go to the open day, you go to a concert, there's nothing. Frantic might be a better word. Busy. One bit of advice I was given when I started my first day at the academy was that you go and buy yourself a pair of roller skates. You're going to need them. And I thought it was a stupid thing to say. And by the end of the day, I thought, well, actually, I kind of understand what they're talking about. So the busyness of the place, the focus, but they're not posh places.
Fantastic. And how early do you prepare for this process of applying to these departments? Is it something which can be prepared in a number of months, or is it something which takes much longer?
It's not a sort of right, this week we are now starting our preparation. It's all preparation. So, it might well be that actually the piece you end up performing in an audition is something that you've been playing for a few years. You might have known it, from an earlier, a grade 7 or something, whatever. It's a continuum of preparing yourself. So, if you're playing in school concerts or you're going off to do a county music level, orchestras or a chamber music course, all these things are preparing you for your audition. Because it's all making you a better musician and a more aware musician.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like we've got a really good understanding of that admissions process and how to get in. But I'm also kind of interested to know what's it like when you're actually there. So Is there, I mean, this is probably a question that's pretty difficult to answer, but is there a standard day? Like what does a Saturday look like for these students?
Well, I mean, we're talking about something that happens all over the country. There's London, there's Manchester, there's Birmingham, there's Glasgow. They're all going to be slightly different depending on where they are geographically. And even in London, you know, at the four corners of London. But a typical junior day would start quite early on a Saturday morning. I mean, at the academy, it was as early as 8 a.m. Most places would say at the core of the day is the first study lesson, be that 45 minutes an hour, a bit longer than that. That sits, but that might not be at the beginning of the day, that might be at midday. And wrapped around that will be things like oral classes, general musicianship classes, chamber music. And then often in the afternoon will be an orchestra or a string orchestra or wind ensemble or chamber choir. And then the end of the day might finish with informal platform concerts, solo recitals, chamber music. Then lots of places do prizes and competitions.
Yeah, wow.
So, I mean, it was not untypical for a day to start at 8 a.m. and for a student to leave at 5:30.
Yeah.
And they probably hadn't stopped all day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that really shows that it is a commitment and collaborative, very collaborative. Like, I think from the outside, some people think it's private lessons that happen in a nice building, but actually it's not private one-to-one lessons. It is group. It is building something with other people. It
is. And one thing I always stressed, and I know all places stress this, is that this isn't some sort of bubble. It is a Saturday school. You're going into a building. But actually, of course, what you're doing is you are building skills that you will then be taking back into your school, into your county music, the rest of the time. So it's not just a one-way process. You are very much going in through a door, but at the end of the day, you're then going out for the week, back into your school, and it will all help.
You can balance both. So there's the academic commitments someone has at their normal Monday to Friday school, but then Saturday school at the junior department. Is there something that a parent can feel confident that their child will be able to manage both? Yeah,
I think that that's one big question to ask at the outset, particularly about how organised is that child. And I certainly remember in the canteen, you know, as we got closer towards A-levels, the lunchtimes were a little bit more frantic with people doing some work on the on the tables, and you thought, okay, exam season is close. But very often, of course, people would say, I love my Saturday because it's the day where I actually can legitimately stop work. And I think most good, solid educators would say that some form of downtime, even a down day in the week, is a healthy thing.
Everyone needs a time to switch off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I suppose there's some final thoughts for parents who are thinking about this and exploring this path for their child and who are maybe a bit unsure about whether this is right or not the right path for their child. What advice would you give them? I
think trust your instincts here. You know, go to an open day, ask questions. You can send emails in as well to all the departments will answer. You know, if you've got specific emails, perhaps it's something to do with some extra additional needs that the child has, or and accessibility. All those things will be answered, and the junior departments are brilliant at answering those. And if that question hasn't been asked before, then it's great. We were often sort of, oh right, we hadn't thought. Yep, we'll sort that for you. That's fine. I think the student themselves must do a lot of the leading on this, because it is, after all, it's going to be them that's going to be there for 6, 7, 8 hours on a Saturday. So they've got to really, really be signed up for it and really up for it. It never worked if there was any form of duress. It never really happened because we never got to that stage. But let the child lead. And that could be in particular about if there's a choice of junior departments, particularly if it's in London, everyone said, oh, which is the best? Well, there isn't there. They're all great. They're all brilliant. They all have their own characters. You will only know which of those characters suits you best by going to see them and meeting some of the staff and other students there.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I definitely think those open days are so valuable to get a sense of the culture of the space. And a child can imagine themselves being
Absolutely.
there after they've actually... That's the one. There's more than just looking at the website.
Totally.
As well. And as a final thing, what can families be doing now to work towards this process, and what sort of support as well do you provide?
There is a lot that can also be done in terms of focusing them ready for an audition. And that's not any form of sort of priming with the exact answer. This is all about building their confidence. What is it going to feel like performing in front of maybe 2 or 3 people in a room, which they may not have ever done before? Are they able to articulate well their passion, or do they get tongue-tied? And is there a way that I or someone can help them just be able to show? Because, of course, the worst thing would be that if someone is missed or something isn't spotted because they weren't able to articulate. And sometimes it's almost just like loosening them up or just letting them be a little bit freer. Sometimes I find that young people are very conscious and worried about saying the wrong thing. And I'm not sure you can say the wrong thing.
But about your music, it's very personal.
It's very personal, and to make sure that you are actually being expressive and open enough and not being a closed book, because if you're a closed book, how can anyone tell?
Definitely, and that's certainly why lots of people choose to see you as well for those sort of private consultations where they ask you lots of those questions, because it is about building confidence.
It is about building confidence without losing any strand of authenticity. It's really, really important. As I keep saying, it can't be schooled. It can't be, it can't be created in that sense. It has to be at the core, the child leading with their passion. But there are definitely ways that I can help for them to articulate that.
I love that idea, and I think that's a wonderful place to end on as well, around a child leading, authenticity, confidence. Thank you so much, Howard, for all your insights then. Really, really valuable, and I'm sure lots of the parents who are watching find it very valuable too. And it actually makes me kind of want to be back to being 11 years old and going again. So if you as a parent though have any more questions about the application process to junior departments and are just trying to figure out whether this is the right thing for your child, please feel free to be in touch with us at Prelude Education. We have a whole range of support available, from mock auditions for children closer to the audition process itself, to private consultations with Howard, to sort of an ultimate multi-year preparation course for junior department admissions. So we look forward to hearing from you, and all the best.